Good afternoon. Welcome to the April 26th Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. I call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the April 12th meeting. They're in your packet. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously.
You didn't add me.
Next up is the consent docket. There are a number of items on the consent docket. Are there any that the trustees would like to poll for individual consideration for discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
Trustee Johnson, how do you vote?
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Laura voted. Now we can. You're always a bit an overachiever, Laura.
Amy voted for me. I said aye. She clicked the button.
The consent docket is approved unanimously. Next up on the agenda is a concurrence docket. There are two items. Neither of these items include aquat funds. Is there any discussion regarding the concurrence docket? If not, is there a motion for approval? We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Trustee Johnson, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And it's approved unanimously. There are no emergency contracts on the agenda today, so next up are items for consideration. Item 6A are plans and specifications to be advertised for project WC 0871, Atoka Raw Water Pipeline from Atoka to Colgate. Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would like to have Larry Hare come up and give you a briefing on A and B, if that's okay.
That's okay.
Good afternoon. I don't have a presentation today, so I'll just give you a verbal update on everything. For item A, which is WC 0871, that is the third project for the Atoka pipeline that we're going to be advertising today. The first being the river crossing the Canadian River, and the second being the section between Ada to the river crossing. This particular section is about 13.9 miles, reaching from the new pump station O located on the south tip of Lake Atoka to our Colgate pump station. It's going to be a 72-inch steel pipe. We have one major river crossing that I know of, but it's not to the extent that we have for the Canadian River. The estimated cost that you see there on the memo for about $68 million is merely for a construction estimate. If you apply today's indices to the pipe prices, we're looking at an additional $30.6 million. So we're looking at an overall project, if it were to be awarded today, of almost $100 million.
So I see the bid receipt date is May 18th. That's, is that 3 weeks from today?
Yes, sir.
That's not a lot of time for a $68 million project.
Well, my goal is to try to get this project awarded before the end of this fiscal year. And in order to do that, the earliest I can open bid would be May 18th. Now, I do have wiggle room to extend the bid date by 1 week and still make the last docket for this fiscal year.
So since it's a capital project, why is the fiscal year important?
We're trying to get at least two of these Atoka projects awarded per fiscal year.
Okay.
Like what I say, it's a goal.
But if the contractors really needed more time and that would achieve a better bid, it may be better to extend the bid date, give them some additional time.
Oh, sure.
And do 3 next year.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We like to set goals.
Okay, so my second question.
Yes, sir.
I like you to set goals, and I think that's a great goal. We just need to make sure that we're smart about it. The last question is, at a burn rate of $100 million a project, can we complete the pipeline fiscally?
Can we do what again?
Complete the pipeline financially. That may not be a question for you.
We
That may
are-
be one for Mr. for Mr. Browning or Mr. Weingart.
Mr. Chairman, we have done the analyses and we have tweaked the capital program to make sure that we can complete this project fiscally and timely. Now, we do not have control over the bids nor the steel index, so if we need to adjust the capital program accordingly to enable the construction of this pipeline within the period of time that we have set aside to do that work, then we will do so accordingly and brief the trust on any modifications that we may have to make.
And the steel index has gone up substantially, but it's come down a little bit.
It's hovering around $74, $75 per hundredweight, which is about $14.82 per ton.
So our biggest issue is the steel pricing. That's what it comes down to.
Yes.
Although labor and fuel are not our friends either.
So we've done something to temper that a bit. We are in the process of developing index similar to the steel index to apply to those volatile commodities like fuel. This is more of a dirt project than it is a pipe laying project. And so there will be significant fuel costs. So in this particular project, we're going to look at providing a fuel index, not an escalation factor, but an index. So whatever it is at the time of the bid, up or down according to the price of fuel. So that will help in our pricing. Otherwise, the contractor's going to give us the bids.
They'll bid a contingency in there, so yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to try to do that to help control the pricing. And we're looking at index, appropriate indices for other commodities and some of the other projects. For instance, we're getting ready to ask you all for consideration to bid a very large wastewater treatment plant project. So we'll need to consider those indices, the appropriate indices for that project as well, so that we can get some good front-end pricing.
All right. Other questions for Mr. Hare or Mr. Browning? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve item 6A? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it's approved unanimously. Mr. Hare, let's talk a little bit about ozone.
Okay. We use ozone at the Hepner water treatment plant to get rid of taste and odor problems that whenever the lake decides to, what we term turn over or gets a strong algae bloom during the summer months. In this go-around, we are going to enhance and rehabilitate, put the current ozone system at Hepner. We've entered into a pricing agreement with Suez Technologies to provide not only plans and specs, but also the equipment. And that portion of the contract will be transferred to the installation contractor. We are amending their pricing agreement today because the first agreement, the first contract inadvertently had a couple of pricing numbers that were supposed to be used only for comparison numbers. They weren't actually included as part of the price, so that we have a large deduct as far as that's concerned. In the review of their submittals and shop drawings, we, along with plant staff, have identified some enhancements to ease the operations and maintenance of their facilities also, so there'll be like a small increase as well. But overall, it's an overall deduct of the pricing agreement.
So does this increase the capacity of the facility, or is it because the equipment is aged and needs to be replaced?
The equipment is aging. It does increase us from 75 million gallons a day to 100 million gallons a day.
So it's both.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Hare on the ozone project? It's item 6B. Is there a motion to approve 6B? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it's approved unanimous. Next up is Mr. Counselor, do we need to go into executive session?
We would like to go into a short executive
Should
session.
we approve the engagement letter before we go into executive session?
I would recommend we approve the engagement letter
Okay.
for executive session.
That being said, item 6C is a letter of engagement with Mr. Eisenstadt, who's in the audience with us today. Is there a motion to approve item 6C?
One, right.
6C1, yes.
The one thing I'd say is that Mr. Eisenstadt has represented the Water Trust dating back to the mid-early 90s, and he will do an excellent job.
I remember. Please vote. Oh, Eric, it didn't pass. No, it was approved unanimously. Is there a motion to move into executive session on this item? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. It's approved unanimously. Before we go into executive session, are there any items from trustees? All right, seeing none, general manager reports. Mr. Browning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a bit of good news. First, I'll start with the pro forma. Our revenues are tracking as expected, and our expenses are tracking as expected in all three utilities. Secondly, we submitted a request for reimbursement to FEMA for the ice storm debris collection for the ice storm of 2020. We submitted a request for $10.1 million. That would be 75% of the expense for collecting that debris. We received that check, which is extremely quick compared to previous reimbursements. Secondly, on March 15th of this year, President Biden signed the Omnibus Appropriations package that increased the federal reimbursement to 90% from 75%. So we anticipate getting another $3.1 million in the foreseeable future. So that's really good news. So that'll help us build the pipeline, Mr. Chairman,
Well,
or pick up the trash while we're building
pick
the
up
pipeline.
the trash, my wife. I don't think that money can be used for that, but yeah.
I just wanted to mention, Mr. Chairman, that this morning Frank Barnes, our city's retiring emergency manager, was quite complimentary of the utilities staff in the preparation of the documents to get the FEMA reimbursement. I'm sure that that had a hand in how quickly we were able to receive that information. Usually the feds come back with multiple requests for additional information, and Frank did say that with only 3 requests for additional information, that was the lowest he had seen. So that
Very
was
good. Good
quite-
job.
Quite good, and I think that should be related
Kristen?
on to the staff.
Staff?
Yes.
Good
Good job, guys.
It was all staff, Mr. Chairman. And that's all I have.
All right. I've not been advised of citizens to be heard, so we will move into executive session. We are back from executive session. There is no action, we're in open session, there is no action necessary. There's no further items before the trust, therefore the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.